This revision video for ESS topic 2.3, flows of energy and matter, and today we're doing an extra video on energy transfer because I think this is an area students often struggle with, so it follows on from the food chain 2.2 video. So in order for you to understand this, I'll be recapping some of the stuff and introducing new content. So what you need to understand is that energy is gained and passed on via nutrition in a food chain. And there are two types of organisms that do this. There are autotrophs, which are our plants, and autotrophs do photosynthesis, and they turn organic compounds such as carbon dioxide and water, which into glucose, which is C6H12O6, quite poorly written there. Okay, whereas heterotrophs, like humans are an example, they do eat to consume their energy and organic compounds, and so energy is trapped. So you need to understand that not all the food chain energy is passed along from each trophic level. So plants only absorb about 40% of their energy. So you can see here the energy coming in potentially from the sun, and from all this potential energy, only 400 joules out of the original 1000 actually hit the leaves. And a lot of this energy is reflected. Some of it just goes straight through the leaves. It is transmitted. Then only some of it can be absorbed because plants can only absorb really red and blue wavelengths. Chlorophyll, the green pigment, is green because it reflects green light out. And only 9% of the 40%, which means only 3.6% of the original 1000 joules up here, are actually able to be used by the plant, and half of this is used to respire to keep them alive. So only half of this 3.6%, so what about 1.8%, is used to be converted into biomass for growth. And as we said, as you go down the food chain, very, very small amounts of the energy is actually able to be converted. So what the plants can convert is called into new bits of biomass, which is formed as glucose, is called gross primary product, and then some of this is used to keep them alive. So actually the bit they only really can turn into biomass from that is called NPP, and this is very low on plants. In terrestrial systems it's extremely low, but even worse in aquatic systems due to the lack of available energy. So we need two key terms which I've mentioned, but we need to make sure we're happy with them. So there is the gross primary production or gross primary product, and this is the chemical energy stored in the plant's in biomass in a given area or volume. So this is, let's say, all the energy in one particular cell would be, and all the stored away energy would be its gross primary product. For example, the starch in there. But this isn't the energy the plant can necessarily use to grow, because some of that energy needs to be used to respire to keep the plant alive. So the net primary product is the gross primary product take away the amount used in respiration. So some of the sugars synthesized in photosynthesis and made and then turned into starch for storage are used then to respire, and therefore that is lost as heat and it's not turned into biomass. So the net primary product is the amount of energy that can be then used to make new biological parts, new biomass. And there are some key terms then, as you can see, it's quite tricky, so I've made this table for you to try and help you learn it and remember it. So the gross primary product is the total gain in energy by the plants per area and time. So that's how much energy that plant is gaining directly from the sun. But not all of that can be turned into biomass, so the net primary product is the total gain in energy after allowing for respiration. So you would calculate that doing gross primary product, take away respiration. Now later in the food chain, obviously consumers are then going to eat those plants. So when we look at what consumers can have, so consumers have gross secondary productivity, which is the total amount of energy they gain from eating the plants after allowing for the loss of fecal matter, so waste or poo. Okay, and then the net secondary primary productivity is this figure take away respiration and what they can then convert into their own biomass. So the net secondary productivity is the gross secondary productivity, take away egestion, i.e. what they release as waste, and take away respiration, i.e. what they use to keep themselves alive. Not all the energy gained from plants can also be turned into new cells. Some doesn't cross it, so therefore is less biofeces, hence you're taking into account this one. And then some, as we said, is lost in respiration, and some will be lost as a result of urine. The productivity along the food chain actually gets a bit better. So the energy that comes from the herbivores, such as koala bear, is getting from the eucalyptus tree it's eating there, is only going to be a maximum of about 40% of the diet that it can actually absorb, because plant material is largely indigestible due to the cellulose, meaning it's got a high fibre diet. So it just passes through the koala and is digested out the other side. However, carnivores eat meat, and meat is more digestible because they can eat the protein and digest all the protein. So they actually assimilate, which means they take it into their cells, 80% of the diet, but only 20% cannot be digested and is lost as weight. And this consumes things like bones, antlers that are not digestible. You need to be able to calculate the efficiency of trophic level transfer. So again, these are the equations that you're expected to be able to do. So you've got the efficiency of assimilation, and what this means is how much biomass from the previous stage can actually be absorbed into the body. So what that means is how much can actually be taken in from the food eaten and actually get into the bloodstream, so digested and not just passes through. And then the efficiency of biomass productivity is the how much of the assimilated material can be then turned into new biomass. So what you do is you work out your gross primary productivity, i.e. what it can contain in the cell, and then you do the amount that can be turned into new biomass divided by that total amount of energy times 100. And the inefficiencies in food chains basically always come down to the following reasons. Not everything is actually eaten. So animals leave scraps, they leave bones, they leave things they can't eat. A lot of energy doesn't actually get digested and goes straight through the intestines out as feces. Heat is lost as respiration, it keeps us alive, and some energy assimilated is lost in lots of different life processes, which aren't all described at the moment. And then you just need to also be aware that we originally thought that food chains on the land were the only type available. We didn't think life could exist underneath the oceans. But then in 1982, we went down in a submarine to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and we saw that there are something called hydrothermal vents, effectively little volcanoes spewing out hot chemicals that would kill us if you were exposed to them. However, something called extremophiles live there, and the start of their food chain is bacteria that can use the chemicals as an energy source to generate organic matter, and therefore, like photosynthesis that plants do on the surface, bacteria are the producers at the bottom of the ocean, allowing ecosystems to thrive at the bottom of the ocean.